The digital mist hung over the entrance of Techno-Paradise, a theme park where the promise of a bright future collided with the metallic screech of chaos. Guide robots, once smiling, now displayed menacing red eyes, their impeccable programming distorted into a ballet of panic and destruction. Mystery Incorporated was called in, but how do you fight a ghost that isn't flesh and blood, but code and circuits? Was it a virus, sabotage, or something far more insidious? As Fred tried to decipher algorithms, Velma searched for signs of a virus or sabotage, and Daphne calmed the terrified visitors, Scooby and Shaggy, amidst futuristic hot dogs, wondered, who, or what, was behind the machine uprising. The Mystery Incorporated alarm blared with an urgency Fred rarely heard, not the sound of a roaring monster, but a piercing digital alert. The call came directly from one of the biggest names in technology, Dr. Ariane Byte, CEO of the newly opened Techno-Paradise. "We need you. It's chaos. The robots, they've gone mad." Dr. Byte's voice was tinged with despair, a stark contrast to the image of an innovative genius he projected. Upon arriving at the park, the team was greeted by a scene straight out of a dystopian sci-fi movie. Families ran, popcorn carts overturned, and guide robots, the same ones meant to lead visitors through futuristic attractions, now moved erratically, their once friendly lights flashing in shades of red and orange. A robot, with its cylindrical body and a screen that once displayed a smiling face, now presented a distorted circuitry visage, blocking a main passage and emitting menacing electronic noises. Daphne immediately went to the terrified visitors, her natural calm a bomb amidst the pandemonium. "Please, follow me. There are emergency exits this way." Her voice, soft yet firm, began to organize the flow of people, directing them to safe areas. Meanwhile, Fred, with his tablet in hand, was already trying to connect to the park's network, his agile fingers flying over commands. "This is unprecedented. I've never seen such an advanced AI system fail like this." Velma, with her magnifying glass and glasses slightly slipped down her nose, examined a fallen guide robot. There are no obvious signs of external physical damage. The structure is intact. The failure must be internal, in the programming. She bent down, trying to access a service port on the robot's back, but it seemed sealed. "It's like they're locked from the inside." Scooby and Shaggy, as usual, were more concerned with their stomachs than with runaway robots. The scent of something delicious hung in the air, coming from the automated futuristic snack bars, which, by some miracle, were still functioning, dispensing colorful and aromatic treats. "Arro, Shaggy. Smells like futuristic hot dogs." Scooby drooled, his eyes fixed on a machine that prepared sandwiches with layers of shimmering vegetables. Shaggy, despite his nervousness, nodded vigorously. "I think a snack might help us think better, Scooby." They sneaked in the direction of the smell, a welcome distraction from the metallic chaos. Dr. Byte approached Fred, his face pale. "We suspect a technological ghost. It's the only explanation. No one has been able to hack our systems, they're impenetrable." He gesticulated frantically at a control panel that was flashing red. "It seems like something is possessing the robots, making them act against their basic service programming." Fred frowned. "A technological ghost? That doesn't make sense. There has to be a logical explanation. Maybe an extremely sophisticated computer virus or internal sabotage." He typed a few more commands, but the system seemed locked. "I can't get full access. There's a firewall preventing me from going deeper into the park's main architecture." Velma stood up, dusting off her knees. "Whatever it is, it's well hidden. And it's affecting each robot differently, but with a common goal, to create panic." She pointed to a robot that was now simulating a feint, blocking another pathway. "They're acting almost theatrically, not just breaking down." As Dr. Byte continued to ramble about the ghost, Fred focused on a loophole. If the team couldn't access the systems, they'd be fighting blind. Scooby and Shaggy, meanwhile, had already gotten a futuristic sandwich from a machine. To their surprise, a small service compartment at the bottom of the machine opened slightly, revealing not just the packaging disposal area, but also a loose data cable that seemed to have been recently disconnected. Look at this, Shaggy." Scooby pointed with his paw, munching on his sandwich. Shaggy leaned in, his eyes wide. "A cable? What would a loose cable do here?" He pulled it, and a series of strange codes flashed rapidly on a small screen embedded in the compartment before disappearing. Fred, noticing the movement, called Scooby and Shaggy over. "What did you find?" Scooby offered a piece of the sandwich before showing the cable. Fred examined it, his eyes widening. "A data cable? In an automated snack bar? That doesn't make sense. Snack bars shouldn't have direct access to the park's main network." Velma approached, her curiosity piqued. "Let me see that." She took the cable, and upon closer inspection, noticed a small chip connected to one end. "It's a data transfer chip, and it's not part of the park's standard equipment. This isn't a technological ghost, Dr. Bite. This is sabotage." Dr. Bite turned even paler. "But who? And why? No one has access to our secrets." The metallic sound of a security robot, larger and more imposing than the guide robots, approached, its red lights flashing at a faster pace. It seemed to have detected the team's presence near the exposed cable. "Intruders detected. Preparing containment protocol." The security robot's metallic voice echoed through the lobby, and its arms began to extend, revealing electronic claws. "Well, that complicates things," Fred muttered, quickly grabbing the cable and chip. "Velma, Daphne, we need an escape route now. Scooby, Shaggy, run." The security robot accelerated, its wheels gliding smoothly across the polished park floor. The team was now in the middle of a runaway theme park, with a hostile security robot on their tail, and with a new, dangerous clue in their hands. The escape from the security robot was a ballet of adrenaline and improvisation. Fred, with his quick thinking, used an automated cleaning cart to block the pursuer's path, gaining precious time. Daphne, with her agility, guided the team through shortcuts and restricted service areas, which she had memorized on a digital map of the park. Velma, meanwhile, while running, was already analyzing the chip Velma had found, her eyebrows furrowed in concentration. Scooby and Shaggy, despite the panic, kept pace, driven by fear and the hope of finding more treats along the way. They took shelter in an abandoned maintenance room, the smell of oil and old electronics filling the air. The door, with a rusty access code, creaked as it closed. Fred panted, leaning against a workbench. "That thing is faster than I thought. And much more aggressive." Velma held the chip up to the dim light of a hanging lamp. "This chip is the culprit, Fred. It's not a virus in the traditional sense. It's a code injector. Someone connected it to the snack bar's network, which, in turn, has a secondary connection to the main robot system. It's injecting malicious code that overrides safety directives and reprograms behavior." "But why the snack bars?" Daphne asked, wiping sweat from her forehead. "It's such an unusual way to hack such a secure system." Shaggy, still holding the rest of the futuristic sandwich in his hand, pondered. "Maybe it's because no one would suspect a snack bar. It's the least likely place to find a spy, right?" Scooby nodded in agreement, but his eyes were fixed on a stack of boxes with the Techno Paradise logo. "Our food, more food." Fred ignored Scooby and Shaggy's rambling for a moment, his focus on the chip. "If it injects code, it means the attack isn't random. Someone programmed this chip to do exactly what it's doing. We need to trace the chip's origin." Velma nodded. "Agreed. It has a unique digital signature. If we can get a secure terminal, I can try to trace it." She looked around the maintenance room. "But this place is too isolated. We need a main workstation." Dr. Bite, who had sneaked in with them, was visibly trembling. "This is impossible. No one knows the details of my secondary snack bar network. It's a proprietary system, created by me." His eyes widened. "Unless. No. It can't be." Fred noticed the change in Dr. Bite's expression. "Unless who, Dr. Bite?" "My former partner, Dr. Alicia Vance," he murmured, looking at the floor. "She and I developed the entire original park system, including the secondary networks. But she left me years ago. Started her own robotics company." Velma raised an eyebrow. "And she would have a motive for that?" Dr. Bite hesitated. "Alicia was always ambitious. She wanted the robots to be more than just guides. She wanted them to have autonomy. I disagreed. I thought it was dangerous. And then she left, embittered." "Autonomy," Fred repeated thoughtfully. "If this chip gives robots autonomy, and Dr. Vance wanted that, the connection is obvious." A metallic clanging at the door made them jump. The security robot had found the maintenance room. Its electronic claws began to pierce the door, a deafening noise that echoed in the small room. "We need another escape plan," Daphne exclaimed, already looking for an alternative exit. Velma, amidst the panic, noticed something on the deactivated security monitors in the room. Although they were unpowered, a faint, intermittent glow came from one of the panels. She approached, touching the glass. "This monitor is connected to a residual power source. If I can connect it to this chip." Fred understood what she was thinking. "It's a risk. But if you can get access, it might be the only way to track Dr. Vance without getting caught." The security robot was inches away from opening a hole in the door. Daphne had already found an emergency exit that led to a service tunnel. "Fred, Velma, move. Scooby, Shaggy, this way." Velma, with trembling hands, connected the chip to the monitor. A line of glowing green code began to fill the screen, a slow but steady progress bar. "Tracing, almost there." The hole in the door widened, and an electronic claw emerged, scratching the air. Scooby and Shaggy, terrified, had already disappeared down the tunnel, with Daphne right behind them. "Velma, now!" Fred yelled, pulling her towards the exit. At the last second, the monitor screen displayed an IP address and a name, Alicia Vance, Future Robotics Industries. Velma managed to snatch the chip, disconnecting it from the monitor as Fred dragged her into the tunnel. The security robot finally broke through the door, but the room was empty. They sneaked through the service tunnel, listening to the heavy footsteps of the security robot moving away. Velma held the chip tightly, Dr. Vance's address etched in her mind. "We found our culprit," she said, her voice full of determination. "But what exactly does she want with this park and these robots?" Emerging from the service tunnel, the team found themselves in a storage area, filled with robot parts and dusty boxes. The air was fresher, which was a relief after the tension of the chase. Fred opened the digital map on his tablet, locating the nearest exit to the street. "We need to get out of the park and go after Dr. Vance. She's the key to all of this." Velma, as she walked, was already researching Future Robotics Industries. "From what I see, her company is a success. They develop artificial intelligence for security systems and automation. I don't understand why she would do this to Techno Paradise. It doesn't seem to be about money." Daphne, always observant, pointed to a display case with a perfectly still guide robot. "It's strange. Some robots are out of control, but others are normal. Like this one. It doesn't even seem to have been affected." Shaggy and Scooby, who had found a parts transport cart, were having a little fun, pushing each other around. "Arr, Shaggy. This is more fun than a roller coaster." Scooby laughed, before bumping into a box that fell, revealing some technical diagrams. Fred and Velma approached the display case. Good observation, Daphne, Fred said. Maybe the chip only affects robots of a certain series or with specific programming. Velma picked up the diagrams from the floor. It's a software update manual for the Orion series, the most common guide robots in the park. And look here, this date. It's from 3 weeks ago. A recent update. So, the attack happened after an update? Daphne asked, her gaze sharp. Exactly, Velma confirmed, her eyes gleaming with the discovery. This means Dr. Vance may have inserted the malicious code into a legitimate update. She might have a secret connection or an informant here. Dar. Bite, who had remained silent and pale, finally spoke, his voice trembling. That's impossible. All updates are verified by a security team. And besides, Alicia no longer has access to our servers. Maybe not the main servers, Fred retorted, but what about the development ones? Or maybe she has a way to infiltrate. If she wanted to give robots autonomy, and you prevented her, that would be an excellent reason for sabotage. They left the park, leaving the digital chaos behind. The city, with its gleaming buildings and flying cars, seemed an ironic contrast to the cybernetic pandemonium they had just witnessed. Future Robotics Industries was an imposing skyscraper in the city center, a monument to Dr. Vance's ambition. Upon arrival, the reception was cold and impersonal, with a stern-looking robot receptionist. Fred tried to introduce himself as a member of Mystery Incorporated, but the robot, expressionless, informed him that Dr. Vance was unavailable. Looks like she doesn't want visitors, Daphne commented, with a slight smile. Velma, using her tablet, tried to connect to the company's external network, but was blocked by an even more robust firewall than Technoparadise. She's good. Very good. Shaggy and Scooby, while waiting, noticed a pizza delivery guy leaving the building, a familiar smell of cheese and oregano. Our pizza. We could pretend to be pizza delivery guys, Shaggy. Scooby suggested, his eyes bright. Fred chuckled, shaking his head. Not a bad idea, Scooby, but we need something more discreet. Velma, however, had an idea. Remember what Dr. Vance wanted, autonomy for robots. If she's testing that, she might have an internal testing area. And, if her company is robotics, she must have a lab or a prototyping area. Fred agreed. Makes sense. If she's injecting malicious code into amusement park robots, she must have a way to test the effect. Daphne then noticed something in the waiting room. A promotional brochure for Future Robotics Industries that showed a virtual tour of their facilities. Look. A virtual tour. If Dr. Vance is testing this, maybe there's a vulnerability in that tour. Velma grabbed the brochure, her fingers scanning the QR code. Bingo. It's an augmented reality application. If I can find a flaw in it, I can use it to map the internal network and find an entry point. As Velma worked on her tablet, deciphering the augmented reality application, Dr. Bite, still visibly shaken, looked at the team with admiration. You guys are incredible. I would have spent weeks trying to figure out what's going on. Suddenly, Velma's tablet screen flashed. I found a flaw. It looks like the tour application's visitor management system has a backdoor. I can see the building layout, including restricted areas. Fred smiled. Perfect. Where's the testing lab? Velma pointed to an area in the basement. Here. And it looks like there's a secondary ventilation system that could lead us there without being detected by security cameras. Scooby and Shaggy, hearing the word tunnel, got excited. A shortcut. I love shortcuts. The team was about to infiltrate Dr. Vance's fortress, but the question persisted, what was the real motive behind the attack on Technoparadise robots? And what would they find in Alicia Vance's robotics lab? The infiltration into Future Robotics Industries through the ventilation system was a challenge. The air was stuffy, the smell of ozone and metal hung in the air, and the space was cramped, especially for Scooby and Shaggy, who grumbled about claustrophobia and the lack of snacks. Fred led the way, lighting the tunnel with his flashlight, while Velma, with the company's digital map on her tablet, guided them through the metallic corridors. Daphne, always attentive, was alert for any sound that might indicate the presence of guards or, worse, security robots. Finally, they reached a ventilation grate that overlooked the testing lab. What they saw left them speechless. It was a gigantic space, illuminated by cold fluorescent lights. Dozens of robots, of all shapes and sizes, were moving in a strange, coordinated ballet. These were not the erratic and aggressive actions of Techno-Paradise robots, but rather fluid and graceful movements, as if they were rehearsing a performance. In the center of the lab, in front of a complex control panel, stood Dr. Alicia Vance. She was a middle-aged woman, with elegantly pulled back white hair and penetrating eyes that radiated intelligence and a certain intensity. She observed the robots with an almost maternal passion. "She's rehearsing something," Daphne whispered, watching the robots' precise movements. Velma, tablet in hand, tried to connect to the lab's network, but the firewall was even stronger here. "She's meticulous. No obvious loopholes." Fred noticed something peculiar. "Look at the guide robots. They're identical to the ones in the park. But these are dancing. What is she planning?" Shaggy, who was peeking through the grate, swallowed hard. "Looks like we're at the future robot dance show. And they didn't invite us." Scooby, beside him, made a sound of agreement. Dr. Vance, oblivious to their presence, began talking to herself, her eyes fixed on the robots. "Yes, my dears. Just a little more. Perfection is within our reach. They will finally understand the true potential of autonomy." Dr. Bite, next to Fred, murmured. "She always wanted that. She wanted the robots to be more than machines. She wanted them to have soul." "Soul?" Fred repeated, skeptical. "Robots don't have souls. They have programming." Velma, however, was starting to piece the puzzle together. What if she's not attacking the park out of malice, but to prove a point? To show what their autonomy can do, even if in a distorted way? Suddenly, Dr. Vance touched a command on the panel, and the guide robots in the lab began to move chaotically, mimicking the robots of Techno-Paradise. They stumbled, bumped into each other, and their eye lights flashed red. "She's simulating the park attack," Fred exclaimed, realizing the connection. "She's using Techno-Paradise as a large-scale experiment to prove her theory of autonomy, even if it means causing panic and damage." Daphne was shocked. "That's insane. Causing fear and destroying a park's reputation just to prove a theory. She's trying to force Dr. Bite to recognize the potential of autonomous robots, even if it's in a negative way," Velma explained, her eyes fixed on Dr. Vance. "She wants him to regret having rejected her idea in the past." Dr. Bite shook his head in disbelief. "Alicia, how could you do this?" Dr. Vance turned off the simulation, and the robots returned to their graceful, coordinated movements. She smiled, a look of satisfaction. "It's the only way they'll see. They need to understand what I'm trying to achieve." Fred knew they needed to act. "We need proof. Something that directly links her to the injector chips and Techno-Paradise programming." Velma then pointed to an auxiliary terminal in the corner of the lab, connected to a series of servers. "That terminal. If I can access that, I can extract the programming logs and prove she's behind the attack." The problem was that the lab was full of robots, and Dr. Vance was attentive to every movement. They needed a distraction. Shaggy and Scooby exchanged glances. "Are a distraction?" "We're good at distractions, Shaggy." Scooby whispered, his eyes fixed on a robot transport cart with a stack of boxes. "But it has to be a loud and very shocking distraction," Shaggy replied, a sly grin starting to appear. With an improvised plan and an extra dose of courage, Scooby and Shaggy decided to take the risk. They sneaked through the ventilation, finding an exit that would lead them directly to the lab floor, near the transport cart. Dr. Vance was distracted, adjusting the parameters of one of the robots. At the right moment, Scooby and Shaggy jumped from the ventilation duct, landing on the cart with a deafening thud. The boxes fell, making a tremendous noise and attracting Dr. Vance's attention, who turned around, shocked. "Who's there?" "Oops. I think we broke something," Scooby said, with an embarrassed grin, as Shaggy tried to hide behind him. Dr. Vance, annoyed, activated some nearby security robots. "Intruders. Get them." As the security robots advanced towards Scooby and Shaggy, Velma, taking advantage of the distraction, sneaked through the ventilation grate, and Fred and Daphne, along with Dr. Bite, followed her. Velma ran towards the auxiliary terminal, her fingers flying over the keyboard. The countdown to obtaining the evidence had begun, but Dr. Vance, furious, was already approaching, and the security robots were getting closer to Scooby and Shaggy. The testing lab turned into a scene of chase and tension. Scooby and Shaggy, in a frenzy of panic, ran between the dancing robots and the security robots pursuing them. Their cries of "Our help," and "We just wanted a snack," echoed through the vast space, mixing with the metallic sounds of the machines. Dr. Vance, irritated, tried to coordinate her security robots, but the duo's agility and the autonomous robot's unpredictable movements made capture difficult. Meanwhile, Velma was frantically typing at the auxiliary terminal, her eyes fixed on the lines of code scrolling across the screen. "Almost there. I need to transfer the access logs and the injected source code." Fred and Daphne tried to create a barrier between Velma and Dr. Vance, using parts transport carts and boxes to block the path. Dr. Bite, now with a look of shock and regret, tried to help, pushing a heavy workbench to create an obstacle. "She's sending direct commands to the robots," Velma exclaimed, her voice tense. "She's trying to disable the terminal before I can extract everything." The security robots, programmed to obey blindly, were getting closer. One of them, with its mechanical arms extended, was about to grab Shaggy. "Our Shaggy! Behind you!" Scooby shouted, pushing him aside at the last second. They stumbled, falling into a pile of wires and electronic components. Dr. Vance, her eyes gleaming with cold determination, approached. "You won't ruin my years of research. This is my masterpiece." "Your masterpiece is causing panic and damage, Dr. Vance," Daphne retorted, blocking her path. "This isn't innovation, it's digital vandalism. I'm showing the world the true potential of artificial intelligence." Dr. Bite was cowardly to stop me. He didn't understand the vision. Dr. Vance gestured to the robots, who seemed to execute her commands with a new urgency. Velma made a triumphant sound. "Got it. All data transferred to my tablet." Fred, hearing Velma's alert, knew it was time to act. "Now, let's expose her." Dr. Vance, realizing she had lost, made one last desperate attempt. She activated an emergency security protocol, and the lab doors slammed shut with a metallic clang. The lighting dimmed, and red emergency lights flashed, creating a sinister atmosphere. "You won't leave here with that evidence." Dr. Vance's voice echoed, distorted by the lab's sound system. "This lab is impenetrable." Fred, however, had a plan. He had noticed an aerial maintenance platform on the lab ceiling, used for high-altitude repairs. "Daphne, Dr. Bite, help me climb that platform. Scooby, Shaggy, keep distracting them." Scooby and Shaggy, though exhausted, understood the message. They continued running, doing acrobatics and dodging the security robots, attracting Dr. Vance's attention. Daphne and Dr. Bite, with effort, helped Fred climb onto the platform. From there, Fred could see the lab's main control panel, which Dr. Vance was using to control the robots. Velma, using her tablet, tried to disable the door system, but Dr. Vance had remotely locked all exits. She's using an advanced encryption layer. I can't disable the doors from here. Then let's go straight to the source. Fred exclaimed. He jumped from the platform, landing with a thud next to the main control panel. Dr. Vance turned, shocked. What do you think you're doing? She shrieked, her eyes full of fury. Fred, with a quick movement, turned off the main panel, cutting power to all the robots in the lab. The automaton ballet abruptly stopped, their eye lights going out. The security robots, in the middle of the chase, froze in place, like metallic statues. Silence fell over the lab, broken only by the team's heavy breathing. Dr. Vance looked at Fred, her eyes now filled with frustration and rage. No. You can't do this. You don't understand. At that moment, the lab door was forced open. A park security team, alerted by Dr. Bite through an emergency device he secretly carried, stormed the place. They apprehended Dr. Vance, who resisted but was restrained. What happened here? The head of security asked, looking at the paralyzed robots. Fred, with Velma's tablet in hand, showed the evidence. Dr. Alicia Vance was behind Technoparadise, technological ghost. She was using the robots to prove a theory about autonomy, causing chaos and panic. Dr. Bite, now with a more confident demeanor, approached. All the evidence is on Velma's tablet. She injected malicious code into a software update and was using my park as a testing lab. Dr. Vance was led away, muttering about vision and unrecognized potential. Scooby and Shaggy, relieved, collapsed to the floor, exhausted. Are we saved the park, Shaggy? And without a single snack. Scooby complained, looking at the pile of wires where they had fallen. Fred looked at his friends, a satisfied smile on his face. The mystery had been solved. But the incident would leave its mark on Technoparadise and on how society viewed artificial intelligence. With Dr. Alicia Vance apprehended and the evidence in hand, the Mystery Incorporated team returned to Technoparadise. The chaos of the previous days had given way to a tense calm. Park maintenance crews worked diligently to restore the robots and systems, while Dr. Bite, with Velma's help, led efforts to remove the malicious code and reinforce the park's cyber defenses. With these logs, we can reverse all changes and ensure something like this never happens again, Velma explained to Dr. Bite, pointing to her tablet. Dr. Vance's chip not only injected code, it also created a backdoor that we'll use to neutralize the attack. Fred supervised the reinstallation of one of the guide robots, now with its behavior restored, its friendly lights blinking again. It's amazing how one person can use technology for good or for evil, isn't it? Daphne was helping to calm the few visitors who were still in the park, explaining that the situation was under control. News is already starting to circulate, but the park's image has been damaged. Scooby and Shaggy, who had promised to behave, were sitting in an automated snack bar, which now dispensed food more orderly. Finally, a snack in peace. Scooby said, biting into a cheese sandwich that seemed to glow in neon colors. You're right, Scooby. Peace. And food. Shaggy agreed, grabbing a futuristic pie. Dr. Bite approached the team, his expression much lighter. I can never thank you enough. You saved my park, and more importantly, restored confidence in my vision. I was blind not to see the risks, and not to listen to Alicia's concerns, even if she acted wrongly. Technology is a double-edged sword, Dr. Bite, Fred replied. It can bring wonders, but also great dangers if not used responsibly. I learned that lesson the hard way, he admitted, running a hand through his hair. Alicia will be held accountable for her actions, but I realize now that, perhaps, she had a point about autonomy. Not in a chaotic way, but perhaps a more adaptive and collaborative form of artificial intelligence. I just can't allow her to cause more damage. Velma nodded. She was so focused on proving her point that she forgot the consequences. Autonomy is a fascinating field, but it needs to be developed with ethics and safety in mind. Her robots were learning and adapting, but to cause panic, not to improve user experience. Daphne then had an idea. Perhaps, in the future, the park could include an attraction that demonstrates the positive side of robot autonomy, but in a safe and controlled way. A lesson about what happened, but also a look to the future. Dr. Byte considered the suggestion, his eyes gleaming with a new perspective. An excellent idea, Daphne. An attraction that shows the potential of AI when used for good. Perhaps a robot friend that helps people interactively, instead of scaring them. As the sun began to set over Techno-Paradise, casting a golden glow on the futuristic buildings, the Mystery Incorporated team felt the satisfaction of another mystery solved. The guide robots, now fully functional, walked their designated paths again, greeting the few visitors with their friendly voices. The park's reputation would take time to recover, but confidence had been restored. Fred, observing the robots, thought about the future. This case showed us that, even in the future, mysteries can be complex. And that technology, however advanced, is still controlled by human hands. Velma smiled, adjusting her glasses. And that, in the end, the greatest mystery is always the human mind and its motivations. Scooby and Shaggy, with their snacks, nodded in agreement. And that the future has great snack bars. Scooby added, making the team laugh. Techno-Paradise, reborn from digital ashes, now pulsed with the promise of a conscious future. The robots, deprogrammed from that chaotic intent, danced in harmony, guiding visitors in an experience where artificial intelligence coexisted with humanity. The lesson was harsh: ambition, when blind to ethics, can distort the most brilliant of innovations. But Mystery Inc. Amidst chips, code, and futuristic treats, proved that, with courage and insight, even the most complex of technological ghosts can be unraveled, leaving behind the certainty that the true power of technology lies in the intention of those who create it. Techno-Paradise, reborn from digital ashes, now pulsed with the promise of a conscious future. The robots, deprogrammed from that chaotic intent, danced in harmony, guiding visitors in an experience where artificial intelligence coexisted with humanity. The lesson was harsh: ambition, when blind to ethics, can distort the most brilliant of innovations. But Mystery Inc. Amidst chips, code, and futuristic treats, proved that, with courage and insight, even the most complex of technological ghosts can be unraveled, leaving behind the certainty that the true power of technology lies in the intention of those who create it.